We live now.
Okay.
Our viewers, wherever you're watching us all over the world, welcome to this special edition of Bakwetu TV. This is one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso, where we talk about current issues in business with a focus on Zambia. Before I can introduce my special guest, always my special guest, Dr. Kasonso, I would love to encourage you to start sending those stars and also subscribe to Bakwetu TV. It's only £4 a month, and more especially, I want you to start sharing this broadcast. It's going to be a special broadcast in the sense that we're going to talk about what is happening currently happening in Ukraine, Russia invading Ukraine, but focusing on how this is going to affect global financial business. Dr. Kasonso, welcome to this special edition of Bakwetu TV.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling much better, Dr. Kasonso. Welcome once again.
Thank you, sir.
Our viewers, before we go into the main program, I just want to give you the financials, how the kwacha is faring with other major convertible currencies. As at this afternoon, at the close of business today, the US dollars to kwacha was buying at 17 kwacha 73 and selling at 17 kwacha 79. The British pound was buying at 23 kwacha 76 and selling at 23.85. The euro was buying at 19 kwacha 86 ingwe and selling at 19 kwacha 91 ingwe. The South African rand was buying at 1 kwacha 14 ingwe and selling at 1 kwacha 15 ingwe. There was a slight appreciation from the rates last week, but the kwacha continues to hold relatively strong against major convertible currencies. Also, before we go into our main program, the kwacha keeps on getting stronger and stronger, though not much, but getting stronger all the time. What motivates that?
Yeah, you asked a similar question last week, and I asked that let's have a few more weeks to evaluate what is happening with the movements on the currency. It seems to me that we had 6 weeks of constant drip down and depreciation, but I think the Bank of Zambia arrested that and may have auctioned some foreign currencies during the last 2 weeks to control the downward spiral. And also, we may have seen some injection of cash somewhere, but at this point, we are not able to evaluate third-party from third-party databases unless we have more information. Yeah, but I think it has to do with just good management of the currency at the Bank of Zambia, trying to control a long-term downward spiral. I think that's what they did in the last 2 weeks. So we see in the last 2 weeks some stability at a better rate than the continuous downward spiral that we had seen, or that we had observed here on TVBakwetu. during a 6-week period from New Year's Eve.
That's good news, Kasonso. Hope one day we can, after 6 weeks, we can talk about that. Our viewers, as I promised today we address economic development in the midst of a global financial crisis. You all know that there is war going on, and that war is not about just casualties in terms of human life, but it has also financial implications. And this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So please start sharing this program so that a lot of people can know that even if the war is far away, it will still affect us financially. Yeah. So we'll discuss the relationship between the economic development and the global wars, the impact of the Russian invasion of uh, uh, Ukraine on the global financial system, and the impact on the Zambian economy as well, to be more particular, or to be more specific, and the critical supply chains and how to secure them. Please share this discussion with your friends on Facebook and subscribe to TVBakwetu if you haven't yet. We are live on YouTube as well. Dr. Kasonso, let's go to the questions now.
Mhm.
The first question is, what's the relationship between the economic development, which is what we talk about on this program,
Yes.
and the war that is happening and the wars in general?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chilufya. That question helps us to set up the theoretical framework in which we are going to base our point of view, that even other people who have similar training or access to some of the same information would come up with the same conclusions as we are going to project here. We have been on these current issues in business. We've been discussing economic development, and we have all defined what economic development is, where economic development comes from, what the key players in economic development are, and the thrust and impetus of economic development, and why economic development is the primary impetus of what we are trying to do to organize the Republic of Zambia into a viable country functioning within the 21st century global economy. So that's the approach we have taken to discuss business in Zambia in that context. Yeah, so last week we talked about business and corporate rules and the role of business. Now, it is connected to what we discussed last week, yeah, because wars, they involve guns and shedding of blood, displacing of people, occupying territory, and all of those terrible things that we hate. But there is a pernicious component to wars that most people don't want to discuss. And we are privileged on this program to discuss it. And our primary presumption or presupposition is that a war is in fact a business. When a third world country is involved in a civil war, they are fighting over control of local economic resources. When international countries, when one country wants to go and take over another country, they are not doing that for ceremonial reasons or to prove who is powerful or the East versus the West, as I've heard some commentators say. No. When a country gets into a war to invade another country, they are trying to take over the economic resources of that country. They are trying to take over money of that country. They are trying to take over the businesses of that country. They are trying to take the money of that country to make it their money. So war is essentially about money. And in this case, wars are about not only taking money by force, but war is about taking over the business narrative, So there is a relationship between economic development and wars, because essentially wars are a business. They are an illegal and a forceful way to take over the factors of production in another region and in another area. So you cannot separate business or economic development, or you cannot separate the flow of money from a war. So wars, we have to have this understanding that wars are not about traditions, they are not about pride, they are not about political correctness, they are not about the global dominance, all of those propaganda things that are. War is about money. Money is spent in order for money to be earned from conflict. So that is the relationship, Chilufya.
That's very interesting, Dr. Kasonso. We're learning every day, and I guess our viewers are learning. I can see from the comments that are coming in. Our viewers, don't worry. Today we're gonna read some questions from your comments, and we also allow some of our viewers to come live here just before we end. But Dr. Kasonso, that's very interesting. But then, Dr. Kasonso, how strategic? We're not talking about war, anything here. We're talking about finances, global finances. How strategic is Ukraine financially?
Brilliant. At the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine carved out itself as a nation. And the thrust of the Ukrainian people was to do business with the most prosperous economies. I think the Ukrainians observed what happened to the relationship between East and West Germany. And a lot of influential factors and a lot of influential people in the Ukraine are families actually from there, from that region, even including the current president that the Russian president is calling Nazi. The current president's family are actually Jews with the origin from that place. So he's a Jewish guy, you know. So their view is that they have to place their businesses and their economics with the most vibrant economies, not to be caught in the proverbial war of West versus Northeast. So Ukraine has opened up, since its founding, a way to relate with Western Europe and with Europe particularly. And there are investments from Europe, there are investments even from China. If you see the reluctance of the Russians to go out full throttle to bomb out things, it's because they have a relationship with China. And China has investments in Ukraine. The Europeans have investments in Ukraine, to the point where at the end of it, they figured out that their relationship, the Ukrainian people, their investments, and if you go and look at their GDP, where they get their money, the businesses they do. For instance, here in the United States, the semiconductors that are used in the neon semiconductors, 90% of the neon semiconductors in the United States are supplied by factories in Ukraine. So if the 90% of the semiconductors, neon semiconductors, are supplied by factories and the science and technology from Ukraine, then it means they have a strategic partner in business. That is not the only issue. There are other areas in which they have developed successful business relationship with Western countries. Now, Russia, present-day Russia, most of their policies are stuck in the 19th century, 20th century conflict, post-World War II conflicts. So instead of going full out to reap the benefits of the global economy through cooperation, they fall back on the odd conflict, and they end up on the back end of business. So how strategic is Ukraine? Ukraine has major investments from important countries, and they've created very good business relationships with other countries, and by the way, including Russia itself. So, but it is this port, this little port next to Russia, with multifaceted interests in terms of business and the flow of money in that region.
Sorry, Kasonso. Sorry, our viewers. I was saying, hold that thought. Some commentators are saying Russia went into there because Ukraine wants to become a member of NATO. And by Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, which means the West are actually going to put their missiles in Ukraine, which is very, very close to Russia. And then the other thing they are saying is, yes, other people are saying the business aspect is also one of the things. So what commentators are saying is what the Russians are doing is what in Bemba they say tukafidila munsenga. Let's go and destroy those strategic assets developed by the West, and then we'll see what they're gonna do. What's your comment on that?
Yes, I can understand where the commentators are coming from there. You know, if you start the Ukraine conversation with politics or military power or history, you end up in a no man's region. You end up even in a situation where you are going to justify an invasion, an illegal colonization of a country, a sovereign country by force. You are ending up going to vote for anarchy because you don't come from your village and go and take over other people's villages. So the way to think through that issue is that there must be a willingness to compete on just simple things called business savvy and relationship. The Ukrainian people are closer to the Russians than they are to the Chinese. But the Chinese have better and bigger investments in Ukraine than the Russians have in Ukraine. The Ukrainian people speak the same language as the Russians. But the people or the West has more investments in Ukraine than the Russians.
So what you're saying is what you guys say in Kahonde. The Russians are saying Muzungu wavula kajo kumusebenzela ne.
No, the Ukrainians are saying
the Ukrainians wavula
kajo. So now the Russians are moving to go and take over other people's assets in Ukraine. That's stealing. You cannot do that. You know. And the thing of stationing this for NATO and all those kind of things, it's people who have invested in that country also moving to secure their investments. Of course, Russia is a nuclear power. Nobody's going on Russian territory to drop a bomb. Nobody is an empty head like that. Because Russia has the capacity to end the world today if Jesus allowed them. Because Jesus is in control of everything, including nuclear weapons. Yeah, Russia has the equipment to bomb out every country, and every country will bomb out everybody and stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? So it is this preoccupation with the toys to kill than the products that improve the conditions of mankind that has created this conflict at the doorstep of Russia. Those people speak their language. They are culturally the same people. They are one people. But Russia's focus is not doing business to improve the conditions of people. It's to create bombs to kill the people.
So Bakasonso, hold that thought.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
Bakasonso, what you're saying is this is
Mhm.
what we've been talking about:
Yeah.
cooperation. This is what Americans are doing, going into other countries. So you're saying the Russians should be concerned about forming corporations instead of going to war, isn't it?
Yeah. There is a group of, yes, there's a group of people here in America. They're called baby boomers. You know what their motto was? Their motto was, don't make war, make love. The Russians should learn to make more love, not make war. That is the
That's
world in which we live in. There are many nuclear powerful nations on the face of the earth. Countries can end the world. Russia is not the only one. Even India. If you provoke India to the core, India can end the earth. Even Pakistan can end the earth. They have nuclear bombs. And nuclear bombs are the worst investments you can make in this world because nobody uses them.
mm,
Because if you use them and another person uses them, that's the end of everything. So if you kufirira musenga ku Ukraine, temuli amanomo. I think I prefer the young Putin 20 years ago than uyumukote. Ushikulu bantu vya bayanda kumushikuli bamara kusamfya ati akakashikulu nakali kwata nepala tasebe pala lya mano. Akotokwa bula mano. Ali bwino kuwa ichikulya. Ale chingirire fintu, ale chingira abantu nemio. So efo chiliapo. If you have a net of funyenipo, it's all about money, it's business. Balaba Ukraine, bale it's the business win on abantu, bale mfuana na abantu, bali kana fia kwa baba patangent that USSR this. No. Those nuclear bombs countries have them right now. Never Britain bali kotama nuclear bombs. But Britain nawe kotaka pasi ya kupushia. But France bali kotama nuclear bombs. But France bali kutu wapushia na vela. Nomba ni neve prompe. No nyanta kono lokasa ku Ukraine. But if it decided, but if detonate, transfer pasanga. But that's not where the human race should go. In the world of nuclear bombs, where no one is ever going to use that weapon, we must compete on commerce. Chilufya, ingili nemu pali chichinala mewachu. Loshe pali South Korea. Agaga tunshi shindera njila ponenu. Kapangwa ku South Korea ka Samsung. But South Korea ni bani? The best scientists on earth. Bali kuno ku America kale. Elo bambiwa ku Russia. Where did the best scientists from Russia get stuck?
in America,
No.
South Korea.
They got stuck in building weapons.
Yes, it's true.
They got stuck in building weapons. And weapons that can't be used for people to survive. It's to end life. So there must be, I hope, this ends well. Otherwise, if it doesn't well, once it will actually Christ, in kondo ita yakapo wino, nga to akonka directive, na narrative yawa Russia, in kondo ta yakapo wino. Once it will actually Christ, na we never support of Russia, babali lepo kuwa born again. Otherwise, once it will actually Christ, bala ona ule chalo. Numba, amano yabo na ushe to church support. Pano pachalo tuwa isa mukulila. Tuwa isa mukikala wino. Tuwa di jenu wachilo. Abonaba kalipira, weke sharp.
Thank you so much, Bakasonso. Let's move on. Bakasonso, now, this war in Ukraine, how does this war affect the global financial system?
Thank you, Chilufya. I had said that war is about money. Those tankers are built at a great cost. To operate them, they cost money. If you send ammunition, they cost money. It costs money to go and kill people. If you are going to fight a war, kuya kulia, kwa tinkondo mwalwa, but mwesa panga profit. Let me give you an example. This is not a good example. I was against the Iraq war. But nalamilanga sense ya war ya mano. Ba yapo ka Iraq. Ile wapo kere Iraq ya America. Number one, kuma wells ya oil. Why? Because in the 80s, na kuma 70s, bari chitemo invest muri ya muri Philippines. Ero Saddam wagwandi la tufia abantu bako. after wachemo invest. Two, balicha invest mulika kakacha kakunwa kakuweti. Na ukala kene au tukataya poka grid yamu ikatataya poka. Everyone can organize the whole world to go and collect their investments in the lama shawishi wa bikiremo in the first place. Everybody leru ila yenkondo. Iliba ishamu mbokati baya mkupoke chalo. Ma sanctions yaba UN shiala hapo. Elo nombe fialo fia it's organized at fifth poke. Ama was by imbire nef equipment ya wananda lama shawa. Ama American companies. So then what did they do? If ba chile pale. Chako baya poka chile chalo. Ba funyamo no bukumu fiance. Nenda lama shawa nse ba di pila fiance ba puisha. Elo ba fumako no kufumako. Chap. They made a profit on that war. Nomba iya kuya ku Ukraine. Kuya mkupoke ndala mashabene shama Chinese, shama Americans, shama Western Europeans. Eba cha invest muri chechalo. Chechalo create more relationships. Ama Western countries. So, how does this war affect the global financial system? That's what we need to think about. When you hear the countries mention the word sanctions, sanctions means imo echalo chenu tuachikanya titachakula bonfiako ama banki yesu nendala masheso ta mwakulashita kona ma product yesu bonfendala masheso. It means that within the integrated global financial system they are carving out an exclusion clause ukufunyamo certain players from the global economy, so that country is excluded from reaping the benefits of the global economy. Kama febaya iba. So ngamulefo kuya ibendala masheso kwa Ukraine. Ngamulefo kuya iba ama semiconductors nama niyo tuta kwa Ukraine. Nishimota mwachemo participate mu global economy kubonfiendala masheso. Because nishimo bakabwa lala. So now financial system gayambo kuta exclude ama major players. Ama losers teba defa balechita abo balechita exclude awe. Ama losers balechita include na baliabene abalechita exclude, but balechita exclude because they are a group of countries. They can remedy the losses among themselves. But balaba pose rekunse nishba posa abantu babo mu buchushi. So that is how this war is affected. But Chilufya mwali mfokwe bati na bafunyamo mu bale yafunyamo ama companies ya China Russia mu Swift. Swift eyo tubonfya kucha transfer indalama between banks. Swift eyo tubonfya indalama okuchita transfer ngamuleshite fintu kuchalo chimbi, and you're transferring a huge sum of money or money, we use the Swift system ukutumempia na ngukupokela ama payment ukufuma kufyalo fimbi. So ngababa funyamo muri financial system ngevifine bafunishemo ichile pelo kwati ngakubashitisha ma products yabo kufyalo fimbi pakwati bapoke payment. It will be so cumbersome and so expensive for them, and their profits will be minimal and their business will be so slow. And you know, it's like if you are saving in 21st century, elo baba wekesha ku 19th century of way of trading. So this war is affecting the global financial system, because if you are of your investments yabo mu Ukraine, if you are of your shut out banking system ya Russia. And Russia is not a small player, it's a big player, because they're quite big partners. You know, you have to understand Russia first. Russia is the biggest country on the face of the earth. Russia has more natural resources than any other country on the face of the earth. It has even got 11 different time zones. Geographically, it's the largest country. If you took the mind of US Americans and you put them on the territory of Russia, they would probably occupy more than 70% of the global economy. But kusiana kwa strategy. Impia baya posa kuma bomb. Ero mbata depend on if you are fimbi. Okuta create more financial systems. People in this type of warfare, people and countries and businesses will be required to take a side. Ngolikulu baliwa bena Russia. Na iwama sanctions yaka kukuma. Takuli kubonfya kwa visa na ma credit cards yesu kuno takuli kubonfya ko na fiance. So no mbe fetefo. Kuwekesha global economy yasela kunuma. That is how this war affects. So in effort mwene this is a global financial war, because some of the Russian companies are some of the biggest companies because of the investments from Western countries. So, but those Western countries have chosen to forgo their investments because they know that Hitler, ili atampio kupoka apokele Alsace na Lorraine ku Northern France kuli overland German. Tapelele apo peni kwamba nokupoka tufyalo na tumbi alepoka. Baisa batata ba Putin no ni Crimea feri bala lyeswiri bapoka ka Crimea. Ero nomba babwero nomba sopoke Dr Jones. Ichishera ko bakesa mina ni China yonse. Umuntu upoke fyalo abakwati nishaka Zulu. Tapelela pachalo chimo. So barisambirira abantu the lessons of history. Efya chitikapa ba Chilufya. So inkondo iyi abantu bali mokati yali tampa na itampa kale because inkondo yonsa po yapelela. It's about economics, it's about money. And the financial system na ile kapakati ngamamo na ma stocks ya kurasha na ya pona currency yabo apa penefe 2 days or 3 days ago wale bonfia 77 ruble whatever okushta dollar imonombo firo ko bonfia 100 by the end of the month maybe ukalafa yuko na 200. So ukupusana nokulathintana pamakwewe muli insha nokula icha threatened nama nuclear weapons bushilu. The world, what it needs right now is cooperation. Ukubombela pamo. So that is how this war is affecting the global financial system. Ama stocks kuno na ifuna na yapona tayari filefo yala. Na kuna na ifuna kuno economy yesu na ichako income losses. Ku Europe chimo chine na vana fibwela kopanshi. So there are no outright winners when you start a war like this. All of you become losers, but the one who tampire is the bigger loser. You are trading in the currency called losers. And the one who tampire becomes the worst loser. So panotulela nda Chilufya kulinsala ku Russia. Kulinsala.
So now, Kasonso, this guy, I don't even want to mention his name. He knows his people are going to suffer, but he still goes to war. And then, Kasonso, how is he going to trade with the whole world without visa, without American Express, without SWIFT? And not only that, Kasonso, I've had a terrible weekend this weekend because my football club, owned by a Russian Jew, Chelsea, has been put under trusteeship. Stewardship. Yeah, because apparently the owner of the club is perceived to be a friend of Putin. So it's affecting everybody. Now imagine the amount of money he has invested in that Chelsea football club, about 1.5 billion. What's going to happen? Yeah. There's another team, Everton, is also owned by a Russian, perceived to be closer to Putin. Over to you, Kasonso.
Yeah, Chilufya. The world that we live in is an interrelated economy. You don't screw up one people in one little corner and think you can get along with another people in another corner. You know, the actions you take in one place are ultimately going to affect people in different places. I feel very sad because na know nalifanya wa Chelsea, but nsela na manager makamaka chirenchi kubati the aya Mourinho. Mourinho ngali ku Chelsea na inera mbwela nga bamutamfa na ine tufura twande na longa. In fact na njila kuma muchalo cha kwa Mourinho konso kwa aya. So na ya ni club yandi. Nali umfobulanda na fyali njikatansha temenwa. Chasekere mopali iyo issue. But chalo ba Putin balefa atwikalemu. Ichako bati abantu abo bayishi bakulya abafyalirwa afe kulya kuchalo kumwawo. About some businesses muchalo mwabo. Better some business kufyalo fini. Because And you can imagine that investment has brought a lot of joy to the world. Amagozi yakwa DJ Drogba yonse lumwina Ivory Coast, the Prince of Africa. Yonse yali yave na Russia. But lero fibonse fiatu bipila. Why? Just because you feel leadership of the world. If you've got nuclear bombs, leadership of the world is now compete on the products that you can supply. You know, ichalo chaba mano abasambirira abasansira kumueshe bali ba number 1 kuyabe na Russia. Mu 21st century kwala fuma oil and gas. If you kuya pompa muchulu kufuku pompa kufunya muchulu. You know, tulefai kwa leadership from Russia. I leadership to akwata from Russia. The leadership.
Yeah, it's true, Kasonso, because time for wars is gone. People are suffering in this world. People need jobs. Young people need opportunities. Why should we be fighting? Why should we be investing billions of dollars in nuclear weapon? And yet we can invest that money in factories like what our friends are doing. Tesla, they are building multi-billion factories all over the world to change the world, start producing electric cars, and save the environment. Yeah, but Kasonso.
That's America for you.
Yeah, now Kasonso. This is not affecting Russia. This war is not only affecting Russia. It looks like it's also affecting Zambia, our beloved country.
Yeah.
I was just reading today in the Diggers today. Our former Reserve Bank Bank of Zambia governor, Caleb Fundanga, issued a statement in the Diggers, in today's Diggers. He's saying, first he said, he talked about inflation in Zambia. I want you to comment on that. Inflation has dropped because the current UPND government, which is the New Dawn administration, is not spending as carelessly or as much as the previous regime, which is the PF regime. And then he says the Russia-Ukraine war might cause a spike in oil prices. And then he says he cautioned it. He says be cautioned. It was not time to celebrate the drop in inflation, as conflict between Russia and Ukraine might cause an oil spike. What's your comment on that? And then before you go any further, Kasonso, a guy called Ephraim, just hold on. A guy called Ephraim Prince Munalula has said fuel has just been adjusted upwards by an average of 2 kwacha today. Is this because of the war in Ukraine? Over to you, Kasonso.
Yeah, thank you, sir. First, let's acknowledge the good foot soldier of Zambia's finances, Dr. Caleb Fundanga, formerly the governor of the Bank of Zambia. What he said was actually correct, and it's one of the main points that we must make on this show, that the impact of that conflict and the nature of the tools that the nations involved in that conflict are using means that because Russia is a major supplier of oil in the global economy
and gas,
and its oil is not going to be easily available to monetize because of the sanctions in the global economy, in the global financial system. It means that oil is going to fetch a higher price than normal. Even here in the United States, we have seen a little upward trend in the price. But just last night, they released several billions of barrels to cushion in the short term to cushion on the price in the short term. But we don't have reserves of oil in Zambia. So Dr. Fundanga was right on the money. We are going to see a spike in the price. So that adjustment upwards is probably even a controlled adjustment. What is going to happen is that wherever we get the oil from, the price is naturally going to go up, because just from the end of the year, actually, 1 barrel of oil was at $78. As at last night, it was almost $100, 98, somewhere there. You understand what I'm saying? So because of that spike, the new coming stocks of fuel are going to even have a higher price. And because if fuel prices globally go up, everything that is produced using fuel in terms of price goes up. Now, let me also introduce in the second one, which wasn't mentioned in that article, which affects Zambia directly. We are assessing the impact. The impact in Zambia of this war is that fuel is going to go up. And once fuel goes up, it will push the essential commodities prices to also go up. And now the second part that will increase the prices is we are an import-based economy. So because we buy goods from other places, those goods will also have higher prices. So by the time they reach resale in Zambia, the prices will even be higher. But even a more serious one is this one. One of Ukraine's critical contributions to the Europe is wheat, and it's from wheat that you create bread. So, generally speaking, in the active domain in which the war is taking place, what is going to happen in that domain is that the wheat prices have gone up, and therefore the bread is going to be more expensive. Yeah. So now cascade that into our region. The fuel has gone up, not only for Zambia, but in other countries. The wheat prices are going to fetch a higher price. So that means no mukate fuel kule kuanda. Na wakuchita import. Bamiletera fuel mukate basa panga wa ShopRite mu Zambia. Kumonfia wheat. Na bread yala kosa ko umutengo. So imitengo yala cha spike yala kwela. That is inflation not caused by the factors within the country, but factors caused, but the inflation caused by the factors within the global economy. So although the people of Zambia is going to pay more for the things, it's not like they could go to another country and pay less. Maybe they could come here to the United States because they have released these billions of barrels on the market to cushion on the price at the pump, you know. But where there are no reserves of oil in countries like Zambia, the price of fuel is going to be higher, and therefore anything that is produced either from a factory in Zambia or from a factory abroad where we import is going to cause the prices now to start rolling up. Yeah, the stewardship of the money is not looking bad. 6 months in the game, the guys look like they're navigating to drive or win. But if they have a national leadership, play some factors that mufire mwachita control. That's why mufire mule sadika, mufire mule verenga, ero mufire mule confiance, ero mufire mule katana integrity. If you feel control at some point.
So what you say, Kasonso, is we need to plan for contingencies or eventualities that we do not expect.
Yes, Chilufya. Remember to attend the party retained earnings. Remember to attend the party retained earnings. For my accountants. Yes. For my accountants, that my economists are. Accountancy is the holy grail of the school of business. If there are 5 most important things in the school of business, including economics, all of those 5 things, accountancy. And if accountants, economics is one of those fingers.
Yes.
Because we go beyond that.
Yes,
we understand money beyond that.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the finances, we have a holistic view beyond the notion of profit, which you cannot use to pay bills. Yeah. So 5. What is
now hold that that thought, Bakasonso. We'll talk about, let's move into real issues. So Bakasonso, how would you characterize the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on the Zambian economy?
In one word, inflation. Prices are going to rise. Ni prices will rise in Zambia. That's what Dr. Fundanga was saying. It's the same thing, same message I brought to this show, is that prices will rise. And the most important thing is also for Zambia, don't get involved. Ngabalelwa abantu ero tafimi kumine directly. Don't get involved. But if you are required to choose a side to majority, not to create a because we need the global financial system to work in our favor. Yeah. But in that fight, that war, don't get involved. But kulia kuti avena Ukraine avena Russia kuti valanda vitundu vyavo vivra kazhinji vavufana navena. They have capacity to make peace. Don't get involved.
That's fantastic, Bakasonso. Now let's move on to another question that I have for you. So Bakasonso, let's talk about the best ways to secure supply chains in war times, and what are the essential supply chains for Zambia?
Incredible. Yeah, that's great, Chilufya. The essential supply chains are 2. The first one is the supply chain that relates to the oil. The supply chain that relates to oil. The biggest weakness we have in the Zambian economy, when it comes to oil, for many years, to have one plan, a backup plan. We need to be able to have a backup plan for the supply of oil in the Republic of Zambia. And that's how you secure it. So, you have to have oil ku UAE or Kuwait. The backup supply na mupepi apope ne pa Angola. Angola ili ukutali. Ili mupepi. Kuroko mulefunya afya fili ukutali. Chashu pasha no kutasecure ama supplies pa Angola. Tabata produce enough for chabashani. So to secure a supply chain Chilufya, kukwata backup plan. Plan B. That is 1. 2. To just not trade in South Africa. In that conundrum of a war, Zambia to steps of South Africa very carefully. But South Africa will support our Russia. Now, if you nuclears, South Africa. I don't know who is going to even use those planes. And who is going to be interested to go and use a nuclear bomb on anybody? But if I'm a warheads, if Chalochimonga won't have a nuclear warhead, and all the countries releases theirs, they have capacity to wipe out the human race. And I faced him and I know what I'm talking about. So, to also what are my backup supply chains with whatever we are getting from South Africa, because I think that South Africa's involvement may end up also restricting the financial movement out of South Africa. Eventually, the Western countries, they are demanding for a change of behavior. The dominant caste Western Europe. lupolo molwine fevale tubika muntulu. So tufuleto kwata ama backup supplies shinde tufunya ku South Africa. Fimbiri mitule hima fefwe bene o fimbi tule bika pa watu tule funya ku China. Tufuleto kwata ama backup supplies for everything that we get out of the country, which is essential. That is how we secure supply chains in war times. What the essential supply chains are the oil, and the other supply chains are the food stuffs that we don't have, that we either can grow those or even have a secondary countries where we can get our things which are unrelated to the conflict and which are not connected to the conflict. Everything gets Chilufya.
Okay, that's fantastic, Kasonso. Let's move on. Excuse me.
God bless you.
Yeah, let's move on a bit away from war. Can you comment, Kasonso, on the importation of onions that have saturated the Zambian market in recent weeks?
Problem to balungu. Balembana kakala that banning importation of onion. But Karaka Kalata Lembelefi and Bakalan Gilepofi, they just talked about it. But what eventually they did was to go back and still continued sneaking in onion from these other countries. And now what has neighboring countries? Now what has happened is our people heard that there are shortages of onion. They grew a lot of onions. And now with these imported onions, they can't sell their onions. So the Farmers Union went to complain to the government last week that the onions are getting destroyed. So for a temporary ban. Now you can't run a country like that. One moment you have shortages, the next moment you have too much surplus that the imports are causing a market problem for your products. You can't run a country like that. And country or national policy should not be based on the moods of your farmers. So there is need in our country, particularly in the Department of Agriculture, to know who grows onions and when do they grow the onions, and how many herds of onions do we need in every year. Those details to conquer what Chilufya. To conquer cost accounting. Yeah. Those little details, beat piece by piece, and then you create an aggregate pool of that. You know, in a particular year, who is going to be growing onions and who is going to be needing to sell them, so that you don't wake up like a drunk government. Lelo mwakanya tomato onion mwasumisha mailo, lelo mwakanya mailo mwasuminisha, and things like that. No, lelo tuacha ban. Yo tuacha ban, yo onion inaipwa. Number century number na 40. No. You also need to be trusted by partners who are supplementing your supplies, even when your supplies are low. So what is needed is a strategic policy around the growing of the onions. Not only the onions, other products that we can grow to reach a point of saturation where we don't need to import, to where we don't need to make these mid-year or mid-cost policy adjustments. So what is happening is unfortunate. And partly, the New Dawn government cannot be blamed completely. Nichipante actually inherit, but we have to correct that immediately. We have to know where our onions are coming from, how many onions we consume in a year, and where at any given point in a year they are going to come from. And every grower must be a registered grower, and they must be able to provide the estimated number of supplies a year so that they can allow for planning, so that we don't need these onions coming from across the border. And so no, at this point now, the onions are going to go bad because we overgrew when we had a rumor. There is a disconnect in the market between the growing of the onions and the selling of the onions. When one moment, there is a surplus. So people are growing onions out of season. And then the government is allowing for the importation of onions. And then When those onions from there comes, then they try to supply theirs. The market is saturated. So we have to have a clear and good understanding of when to grow, when to supply, and who is going to do that. So there must be the proper management of how that product is being grown in the Republic of Zambia. Not only that product, but all other agricultural products that we can get from other countries to supplement on our efforts. And then if they're saying that the onions are going to go bad, what has happened to our new market in the Congo? Our Congolese brothers also not in need of any onions from us. You know, we may be needing to speed up the arrangement so that maybe we can export the surplus product. That's some of the things that we can do.
So, Kasonso, from what I was hearing is that one, the Minister of Agriculture, there is need for proper planning. But again, Minister of Agriculture can only plan if they've got reliable data from the statistics department, isn't it? They need to have statistics. Who is growing the onions? When do they grow? How much? And then they plan accordingly. And then, Kasonso, the other thing is the products that we can grow cheaply. All the products in Zambia, I think there is need for also data so that the Minister of Agriculture can plan, because the global business or exports are based on what is known as a comparative advantage.
Yeah.
Like onion, we can grow onion very well and cheaply. Why can't we grow more and export more? Because excess you export. Why should we import onion when we've got a comparative advantage to grow onions?
Yeah. So you know, here on One by Chilufya, we have always advocated for data-based decision making. The Ministry of Agriculture doesn't need the statistics office. They can establish a statistics office by themselves there. And they just collect the information. How many onion growers do they have? And how much? You can even say, oh, everybody who grows onions in this country, register with us.
And sometimes, how can we support them to boost their production?
Yes. So
or to grow them cheaply.
Yes. How much do you grow? And when do you grow that? And you calculate all of those. There has to be hard work. Economic development is going to be achieved only through one method, hard work. So you calculate, you use the numbers to plan. You don't use narratives, you don't use imaginations. Yeah, so you don't have deficits in the market because you know who is growing and when they are not growing, and who is not growing at what time. And you know the quantities that are coming from the market in any given situation. But this disconnected type of arrangement where you don't know even how much you are able to grow as a country and how much you're able to grow, how much you're, you know, it's this functioning in the darkness, in a vacuum, dataless functioning. We need to put away the PF way of doing things, and we need to put on the new Dono way of doing things, which is arithmetic, mathematics.
That's fantastic, Kasonso. Before we go into the next phase of bringing in Bakwetu family and other viewers who are interested to come live, I've got another question. This is specifically about Zambian families. What can the average family do in Zambia to survive economically during the coming days? That's one question. And the second part is, where do you think this war is going? The war in Ukraine. Over to you, Kasonso.
Thank you, sir. First of all, what is going on in the Ukraine is very sad. There is no need for any more loss of life in that country. You know, they need to agree, negotiate a deal, and stop whatever they're doing. They need to stop the war. But in case the war is not stopped, people must be prepared, because there seems to be a level of stubbornness that thinks that bullying people, bullying countries, or taking over their territories is a solution. It has never been a solution. You know the battles that America ran into when they took Iraq. You remember the battles that America ran into when they went to Afghanistan. Those people whose country they're taking over, they are even more sophisticated than the Iraqis and the Afghans. That country cannot become collateral damage for the global economy. But just in case that's where we are going, Zambian families should go back to our traditions. Remember that Chilufya kaleni civilization iliyota ilaesa tuwale kwa tabu utala panganda. Na pafamu wale kwa tabu utala kumushi. Muba bika mataba. O wabika mokalundwe. Yali umano kuma. Yalubale tuwapo feba ya bikira buwabi. Batu wapo. Zambian families should conserve their economic resources for the hard times. If this war is not ending quickly and it goes on for a long time, it's going to cause a lot of hardships. Inkondo itampire va Russia ku Ukraine nsambu no ushali mwakabamo. So mwelu kwa ku Zambia kulasunga wakali ubuche kulabika kwefya kuli mayanda kuti mwasanga na supply chains yenu yonsali disrupted, you know, and nawe buteko twakufundira kumu yafu abantu bobe kulasunga kali ubuche okusunga kwefya kulisha abantu ma emergencies kaleto waliko eto buteko bwakwe bati kuya kongola fe indalama kwa chifipuba, but the people voted for change. Ubuteko bwa Zambia ule sunga kwa kali ubuche pangana, you know, ama hard times yele mwaka kwa tualafu mamuli COVID ero tuye muli season ya prolonged war ya kwa bati if it's disrupt ama supply chains uko tushitefia kule uko tushitefinto. Ero maintaining friendships around the world aya liko economically viable kwa mule luila pamo, mule chuli la pamo, mule diana pamo will help everyone. The thing the Zambian families can do, conserve resources. Conserve resources. We repeat, conserve resources. You know, because in kondo inga yatwali ikaleta na machushu mayanda ogota itukumine tatuishu nefe bale ruida ikatukumia once efena chafo kulanda fe pali yo issue wachifu.
Okay, just stay there, Kasonso. Before we move into the next segment of looking at the comments and the questions from our viewers, we've been joined by one of our Kwetu TV family member, Wo Mukelebai. Wo Mukelebai, welcome to One-on-One with Dr. Kasonso.
Thank you so much, my brother, and good evening, Wo Kasonso, and good evening, Wo Chilufya.
Mwanamulena, good evening. How are you?
No, we are very fine. Thank you so much. Yes, you have really.
Now, Wom Keleva, you hold that thought. I'm gonna give you a chance.
Okay.
I just wanted to introduce you.
Thank you.
First we need to read some comments and questions from our viewers, and then I'll come back to you. Thank you so much. Just hold that thought. Yeah. Thank you, Wom Keleva. Good to see you. You're looking good. Kasonso, I just want to look at some of the questions our viewers have and comments. We've got this one. Why is it difficult to get fuel from Angola and Nigeria? Over to you, Kasonso.
Why is it difficult? Angola ni neighbor fiapo kanshi ngachagwa wati tatwa kwata na matanks batwite fe ufwe bana babitonji tukayasenda fe figubuli fya mafyo pa Angola tukalete ma container wa Zambia bale bikamuyoto
Okay, thank you so much on that. Another one, quick one. I think this is a comment, but you can still comment on it. That is what is being said. Database decision rather than chilimelime. This is agriculture. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rogers is apparently
Yeah.
my classmate at Kansenshi Secondary School. We went to the
Oh,
same
remember.
school. Yeah, grade 8 to grade 12. He used to be my leader at Scripture Union. Good to see you, Rogers. I understand he's based in Southampton.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a brilliant way of putting it. You know, they don't have information from the Ministry of Agriculture when to do that. And they
Mm,
don't coordinate with the ministry. So kulima fechiri merime onion. Kashina bachita na onion ya ku Zimbabwe. Na bachita na
mm,
onion ya ku South Africa. Ero bukisha mukufisha pa market. Ama onion ya mbo kubola.
mm.
Yeah. So data-based decision making. That's what we need. Yes. I
Okay.
agree with Rogers.
Okay, fantastic. Another question, Makasons.
Mm-hmm.
From Muyambango Sikatana. The government needs to
Muyambango.
help. Yeah, Muyambango Sikatana.
Sikatana.
The go- yeah,
Valeziago.
yeah, yeah. Vo Mukeleva is sister. Yeah, so
Vegetables are
Makasonso,
written.
be very careful when it comes to Vom Kelevai. Let's move on, please. I can see he's laughing. The government needs to help farmers to export produce because at the moment vegetables are rotting at Soweto market. What's your comment, Makasonso?
Well, yes, it's this same database decision making. The Ministry of Agriculture needs to value the product that is being produced by the people. And they need to secure their businesses by ensuring that they are able to sell the product in good time in their own country at a good price. And if they are not able to do that, there should be cold storage facilities where the people can go and sell their produce. And those are kept and stored for export markets. It's as simple as that. It's not difficult. But
Not,
the thing that can, the institutions that can organize that are institutions where the people put the power.
not only that, Makasonso,
Yeah.
our president has been
Mhm.
talking about value adding.
Yeah.
Most of the vegetables and the fruits we grow in Zambia,
Mhm.
we can actually add value by processing them and put them in the tins. Tomatoes,
Of
even
course.
onions, even beans,
Yeah.
canned beans,
Yeah.
even mangoes. You can put them in the tins.
Yeah. 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 So we agree with what's Katana.
That's fantastic. And another one, Bakasons,
Mhm.
from our sister Susan Kabwe. Surely we can grow our own onions. And we just wasting money by importing such commodities?
Ifyo pano pava kwetu twalikana ubunang'anita bulisha kasuma ifyo ako bati na kanyense yonse tuleshita kufyalo fimbi awo mulele ero lya mwashita akanyense yafa kufyalo fimbi ero naye mumwakala balampa peno kulima ero mwalima mwaleta na onyoni mwalime but kulishita mukisa import. There needs to be coordination between the farming group and the group that is authorizing other products to come into the country.
Just a
Thank you,
moment,
Bakabo.
Wakasonso. I'm just scrolling through the questions.
While you are going through the questions, Chilufya, can I say something?
Yes, Wakasonso, Mukeleba, I'm going to allow you in a minute. Don't worry. It was time for questions from our viewers, and I'll allow you in a minute. Yeah, Kasonso, there's a comment there. The one we talked about it. It looks like somebody is confirming that fuel has been adjusted upward by an average of 2 kwacha in Zambia. Are you aware about that? And is it because of the impact of the war in Ukraine?
It could be, but it could also be due to the dropping of the currency over a 6-week period. You see, remember what we were talking about, the depreciation of the currency from the beginning of the year. Yeah, so because that was happening, some of the effect could be seen in the fuel price towards this particular time. But it could also be just a sudden shock caused by the war in the market. So unless the people in charge come out and explain why they've done that, we can suspect it's either one of those two reasons.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now I'll bring in Momkelevai to come and ask. Momkelevai, we've been talking about, let's stick to our topic. We've been talking about economic development, looking into the global financial consequences as a result of the war in Ukraine. And you can ask your question, you can make some comments. Over to you, Momkelevai.
Thank you so much. Kimanzibwani ma Sichavasayesu, Sichavasabulozi, komuni utwela kaufela, kina wamina mkelavai. And Bali Vingi, you know that's my hometown. I hope you are listening. Thank you so much. Chiwempala Mwitulabana Ifovene, we are here. We've come for you about Chiwempala. Thank you so much for Chilufya. You see, you spoke about a lot of things, gentlemen, and Kasonso, that was brilliant. You have analyzed, you are truly an asset to Zambia. We need you. We need you. You're an asset to us. Chilufya, kudos as well for the question, the brilliant questions. My concern is when it comes to, you've talked about, there's something that really caught me when you talked about the production of, that we have had the surplus of onion in Zambia.
Yes.
Yes. To me, I just want to say something on that part, and then I want to talk about the war. But at the when it comes to the war, I want to say this: let's not take advantage and use the war as a scapegoat for Zambia to come up and start giving excuse of not developing our country because there's war between Russia and Ukraine. It is not our war unless we are aligned to it and we are indirectly or directly affected to it. Like we saw when we talked about our students that were stranded. That is where we are directly involved, and we have to come in and swift in and get rid of save our students. But when it comes to economical crisis, I think it hasn't reached that yet. We are yet to know, we are yet to find out, unless we, the Zambian, are supporting the Putin regime, who has been affected with these sanctions. There has been a lot of sanctions, as we are aware, and right now we are not happy. Some of us Zambians that live in the diaspora, we are not happy at the manner in which Putin has put up this fight, you know, because in one or the other we may be affected. So As Zambians, it's too early for us to call it a day, because it just started. It has been in a pipeline, and we are waiting. And it's good that you have, as analyst, you have spoken about it and come up with your analytical solutions and advice on how to protect ourselves during the impact, if at all we will be affected. Yes, and to prepare ourselves, which is very good. But as for Zambian, we are not yet directly affected for now. We need to maintain our economy like we did during the financial crisis. You remember in 2008 or 2007, during the financial crisis, Zambia maintained their position to be, we survived that crisis. The whole world was in trouble, but Zambia, through Arabi, survived. And I want Zambian people to hold that thought, to say, let's think on those lines, to say it's too early. Let's not start rushing into conclusion and start using the Russian and Ukraine invasion as an excuse to deny or to increase certain commodities where we are not directly or indirectly involved. So please, this is the war between Russia and Ukraine. So balekeni balwe or send to watch the support, and us, me and my family, we stand for Ukraine, and we want Ukraine to be free from all this trouble. Then when it comes to onion, Zambians, we need to learn to support our local products. We have the food. We know our food, the history of our food. We are anchored on onion and tomato. Every food ingredients, our cuisine borders on onion and tomato. And to hear that we have surplus of onion that we are failing to supply to export, and we have too much, and we have onion rotting muma market. Yes, please, let's change this narrative. Lekeni isen to change a narrative, okay, so that let's learn to support our own. Let's stop this self-hate. Let's support our own local products. Just because it comes from Zambia, it comes from the other part of Zambia, it doesn't mean that it's a below par product. It is a product that we need to provide, and we need it in our own shops, in our own homes. So for us to start negating or avoiding and go and buy onion from ShopRite because it's coming from South Africa, that tells what kind of a society we are. We should learn to support one another. We need to do away with that kind of narrative. We need to come together and support one another, because the onion that we grow, you know, if we kuno diaspora, onion to shama prices, we buy with a lot of money, and unlike what we use when we are home. So why can't we support our local product? And this issue of dependence, sorry, I've taken your time. There's dependence syndrome of government. All the time we are looking for answers from government. When you know you are producing onion or tomatoes or cabbage, whatever. We have technology today. We are connected. We have network. Why don't you utilize this instead of depending on the day when the Hakainde Chilema or Balungu decides to think, oh, today, na wukira kurait. Let's now go and let's now try to protect and promote onion or cabbage or ubunga into. No, we can take our own initiative we waste much of our time on things that are unproductive. Let's stop this issue of politicking every time and then we want to point a government to do things for us. Mwema Zambians, nami papat. Let us do things our own way with the knowledge and the education we acquired. Let's connect to the world. Connectivity, networking, it's important. You don't have to wait for the government to connect you. You need yourself to take an initiative. Don't wait for a miracle. You hear a pastor telling you, just sit down and pray. Things will come to you. Tell that pastor to go and shovel. Tell him, I want to work my way. I want to do things. Let's stop depending on miracles. The miracle will never happen if we don't work. So isentuwombe. Let's work together. That is my concern, Kasonso, our economist, Chilufya. That is my concern. If we can just work and network, we can develop this country. We don't have to depend on Bahakainde, whoever who is in the presidential seat, who has a political will. We don't need to depend on political will. We can do it ourselves, our own selves, not waiting for a politician to come and tell us, to give us a political will. Not that. That was my point.
Thank you so much, Mamkelevai. Kasonso, I'm gonna ask you to comment on that, on your closing remarks. In the meantime, we've also been joined by another Bakwetu family member, a lady for a change. Before we are being accused, I don't want to mention that. We've got Kangwa. Makangwa, any comments, questions on what we've been talking about today? By the way, how are you? Good
I'm
to see
very
you.
well. Mlishani vonse pakokola.
Nawe fetulifya abavumi despite babululu besikwi kulan
Ku Ukraine.
ku Ukraine ukuli inkondo but most Zambian students are out of Ukraine, but we still
Yes,
have South African students who are still
yes,
our sisters and brothers who are still stuck. They've been caught in the ceasefire because they can't
yes.
go
It's
out.
quite unfortunate.
It's quite
They'll be safe.
unfortunate, but
I promise you, Vane, I promise you, they'll be safe. They'll be back and they'll
yeah,
be taken good care of. And we should not exaggerate. Let's just wait and see how their authorities and the way the Zambian people have done things, definitely we are going to get somewhere. They will be safe, I promise you.
Yes,
Zambia or Africans will be safe. And anyone that is going to seek for asylum seeker or refugee asylum in neighboring countries, they will be given those asylum, because I live in the Scandinavians, and the borders are open for those people to come in anytime, any day, any minute for asylum.
yes.
So don't worry with that. Putin, these are last kicks of a dying horse, so let me not say much about him.
thank
Yeah,
you so much.
interesting
Thank you so much.
conversation, Kasonso. I like the way you analyze the current issues. Yeah, I'm quite. I
Good
just
to
want to
hear
touch
from
on
you,
a
my
few.
sister Kangwa. I miss you so much. It's been
I
long.
miss you too as well. I just want to add on a few issues that have been raised. Ramkelewa in particular, you mentioned that as Zambia we should stay out of this war. Unfortunately, we live in a global economy, and what happens in Ukraine will affect us whether we like it or not. Already we've seen the price increment in gas prices, and it's going to have a ripple effect. We don't determine the commodity prices for most of the international markets. We are on the receiving end, unfortunately. So any negative impact on our major exporters like Russia will have an effect on us directly. And the way government has gone on with determining our energy prices number, they've removed subsidies. So I am a cost reflective prices. If the war goes on any further, it's going to have a direct impact on us. The oil prices will continue to increase, and we all know how things end up when oil prices increase, all other commodities follow suit. So as Zambia, whether we like it or not, we are on the receiving end. And even our grains, Ukraine is a big exporter of grains. So once there are shortages on the grain market, those things will also increase. And already Zambians were struggling with disposable income. There's very little disposable income. So we're hoping that this war doesn't take too long, that it's resolved in a diplomatic manner. And I think we need to give kudos to our government for how it's been able to arrange the evacuation process. I know they haven't yet dispatched Zambians to Zambia yet, but they're in Poland, most of them. And I think we need to commend the government. At first, it was looking quite stabeshiwe for Valechta. We were receiving a lot of misinformation, but I think they've come together. And the diplomats and everyone involved needs to be given a hand. And then lastly, on Ililia Shidia onion bans, year in, year out, we hear this story. We're banning, if it's not onion, we're banning fruits. Last time, Madoras there, when she was agriculture minister, they banned fruits. It's very haphazard. I think by the time you're coming to banning any type of commodity, you have to establish our local supply. Is it sufficient to cater to the local market abundantly, not just for 3 months, for 1 year, for 2 years? It should be in a phased out approach. And I think those are things that we need to address. For a long time, they've been talking about economic diversification, and we need to now start introducing value addition industries. There are so many things you can do with these commodities that are being thrown away. There's no reason why tomato should be rotten. There's no reason why onion should go bad. There's no reason why we should waste any single agricultural produce in Zambia. I think ZDA needs to just have a quota system to say, okay, you're coming in as an investor. What are you coming to invest in? They should just have a deliberate policy to say, we want 10 value addition industries set up in different parts of Zambia. The government needs to have a conducive environment for business people to survive. As a businessman, if the government isn't providing a conducive environment, but nothing is yielding results. Government needs to put in policies that are favorable for the businesses to thrive. We need value addition industries in Zambia. And yeah, this conversation, won't be having this conversation in 5-10 years' time. We should be thinking long term and not just short term. Bans don't work. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Bakangwa, that was fantastic. Bakasonso, before you come in, I just want to comment on what my sister Bakangwa alluded to.
Yes.
Value addition. Bakasonso, with all these tomatoes, onions, everything rotting, mangoes, pineapples, Bakangwa mentioned a very important thing, which our president has been talking about also. Imagine if 10 investors came into Zambia and set up factories, not competing with Zambia growing onions, but processing those products. I saw a comment about one guy who was saying, when you put onion in the bottle, what do they call it? Onion prinkle or something? He says it's very nice. And imagine if say 10 factories were set up. We used to have pineapples in Winilunga. We can have a factory to process pineapples. Now imagine how many Zambians will be producing pineapples in Winilunga. And then maybe tomatoes in the Lumberland, Copper Belt. And there's a factory that is adding value to those tomatoes. Imagine how many Zambians will be producing tomatoes. And then we've got one factory in Northern Province processing mangoes. How many Zambians are going to grow mangoes? So that was a very, very important contribution by Kangwa. And Kasonso, over to you, your closing remarks before we can close our program tonight.
Thank you, Mwabantu besu ku Zambia, kuno ku America, ku Canada, kundola kumwesu ko kumasala makamaka na kukansenshi Mwabantu bandi avena sanfio kwa chimembe oko. Thank you for watching this show. Mwebe na Lusaka, mwebe nandi. Na mwebe ne babu nkolanya bachiwe mpala. Thank you for watching us today. We tried to explain the connection between economic development and wars. And we said essentially wars are business adventures. And we feel that this war is, although it's beyond our means, this war is affecting the global financial system. Russia has been excluded for the most part from the SWIFT banking system. In the next few days and few weeks, Russian institutions will not be able to receive money or send money through the global financial system. That's a very crippling sanction. And they either have to create their own business transactions or business financial system around the world, which hasn't been their focus for more than 100 years. Their focus has been to create nuclear bombs that can exterminate the human race. So the wisdom of those investments have come to a heat where a little country beneath them, because of doing well with others, they have to go and take it over. Russia is the largest country on the face of the earth geographically. It has more natural resources than any other country on the face of the earth together. In fact, it has more natural resources than the entire North America put together. So ngacharo chapa alwafi echakwatile na chisemena vika pono kubuku kwako na chena ngachari nonka. So ijeje tachanonkela icho to aibika famaboko ya kwale so kwatuishiwe. But the war has an effect on the global financial system because we're dealing with a major economy with an influential country that has been sanctioned by other countries. They don't want to do business with them because they want to go and take over other people's investments in another country. But in other words, invasion in Iraq, Ukraine, invest in Ukraine. So we have pano kubepati yo ba westi ba chitashani ba neto ba chitashani no nindala mashaba nabo muri ushobora mukwiba. Yeah, that is our complaint here. And the impact of this invasion on the Zambian economy, we recognize that because we are interconnected and we operate in a global economy, the vehicles through which the effect is going to come to Zambia mutengo if you will, because Russia is one of the major suppliers of oil in the world, and excluding Russia from one of its major markets creates demand for the oil we get to other countries, rerouting that or to other places. So that raises the cost of us obtaining that. So mutengo wafiwo nga wakwela wayako pamulu ama commodities yonse yakakosa kwa mutengo. So mitengo yala imakuzambia. So inflation but government tangubale control wino ile apanshi yala affected by global factors beyond their control. Napo tuleba pepererako bakwate kolusira kwalesa in that area. Then the other way is through the supply chains of essential things that we deal with in the Zambia. Ifyo tulia twachanda pako bati mutengo wa wheat na wena na ukwela mutengo wa wheat na wena na ukwela. So fweba mutashakari kwito twetemo kulyo mukate na bread chishinkwa chako cha ku Shoprite chane wheat ya ine na ikwela ko mutengo pano sono mukate wala kwela ko mutengo. So na ma commodities yambi eyo twachanda opalifya onion kwali ukuthi ban importation of onion. Then twatha sango ko bat onion vena Zambia tabale supply by sula ya ban by sala futhi. So yabaleta onion nyimbi abena Zambia era bakisa grow onion. So my farmers abapalasi bayisayicha netema onion yalebola because the market has been saturated. What we have said is that mufire mwaba data-based decision making, pafire power coordination between the growers of the products and the controllers of public policy that involves connecting. So your situation to kwete ni chimbwino plan is a lack of coordination between the growers and the people who are making the policies to import. The New Dawn government should act in a manner that is better than ababashinkamanyira twatamfishtof ni shepo. And then we conclude as Zambian families kubeko kutsa reserve ama resources because nchita yankondo inkondo batampire baracha lunsambu no ushali mwaka bamu na ikumye fyalo fyonse fye umulando wako bati barasha ni ba global player nindalama esho bayamukwiba ku Ukraine nindalama shabene ma investments yabene mu Ukraine yobe yamukwiba niyo mbabe mukwibire ndalama ma global players. So yefu twachirandapo mu bushiku bwalero nga namukate fipu kina fimbi mutwipushe but no yumulungule isa esanga tuperako obumi tukesa mukese na pano pene tukesa twalira n'ebibyashi tukasonkomo na chimbi kire kitika on this discussion of current issues in business with a focus on Zambia. Thank you for watching TVBakwetu. Subscribe, tutuminene kwa masters, tutuminene ko na ma super chats kubi ba YouTube. Kali nale munako na ma super chats. Somba woze ba YouTube mwalingira pachani tamule tumina ko na ma super chats. But it's a wonte. Thank you for watching this piece.
Dr. Mwala wako chimo.
Balalunda po bafyala babatata bamukelebayi bamukelebayi no balundende
ba Zambia twami papata, learn to promote your own local products. Ichintu ichikalamba sana. You cannot go and start praying God to other people when you neglect your own God. We have our own natural resources. We have our own food that can actually save us from any war if we preserve what we have. So let us learn to promote our own local products. We have farmers in this country. We have innovators. Let's support them. Ulupatanyo poseni kumbali. Let us unite and love one another, because together we can beat anybody, including Putin, that wants to destroy this world. Natote.
Thank you so much, Bomukeleva, on that. Kasonso, thank you so much for coming to this program. You've articulated very, very well. I don't have to add much because you've actually answered most of my questions, most of my concerns. And I think from the comments that are coming there, I can see them. Our viewers are very happy, very excited. At least we've answered most of the questions they had. Now Zambians understand that the war might be far away, in Ukraine, near Russia there, but we live in a global market. It affects us indirectly. And the longer this war continues, the more we're going to suffer. As Kasonso said, crude was selling at 70 something dollars yesterday. Today it's $100. So that increase is going to pass on to the consumer, which means bread. And then the other thing is Ukraine is the largest producer of wheat in Europe, which makes them one of the largest producers of wheat in the world. So if there's war there, then there's no supply of wheat. And everything works on demand and supply. So if there's more demand, prices have to go up. Just like Russia. Russia supplies most of the gas to most of the European countries, including Finland, Sweden. And if there's no supply of oil and gas from Russia, which means there will be more demand. The prices are going to go up. And then, not only that, there's a human element to that war. The longer this war goes, we don't want a nuclear war, because a nuclear war means we all go to heaven.
And Ukraine supports also supplies gas. So too.
Yes. So if there's a nuclear war, we can still start praying now, our last prayers, because we have to go to heaven. And my prayer at this point is those people who are involved in this war, the Ukrainians and the Russians fighting. That's my advice to them. Fighting is not the best way of resolving conflict. Sitting down and talk as adults, mature adults, is the best way of resolving conflict. On that note, thank you so much, our viewers. We've come to the end of the program. May the good Lord bless our beloved Zambia, bless our president and the leaders. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye. Good night. Bye for now. Thanks.